Hey everybody, and welcome back to A Path to Contemplation. My name is Andrea Williamson, and today we're going to be putting it all together. All at once putting in motion spiritual practices, contemplative practice, and getting to know the self. As I mentioned in the last video, I want you to be able to see how these three elements can work together. And I want to encourage you to start identifying what these elements can look like in different combinations as you begin placing them inside a new image of your everyday life. So maybe that looks like setting some goals. Maybe that looks like choosing a few elements at a time and practicing them until you're ready to learn and incorporate others. But what I hope you'll begin to see is that what we're doing now and what we've been doing all along has been moving you towards the start of a vast transformational experience and process in real time. So what I want to spend time doing today in this final video of this series is give you some examples of what it looks like to combine these forces in these three areas. So you'll be able to see what that looks like in my life over time, what that looks like even now. You'll get to see some of the goals that I've set and ways that I've created support for myself in order to achieve those goals. You'll also have a chance to create that for yourself in a way that makes sense for you. So remember that this is not a fixed process. It's really a lot like cooking, because you're getting the ingredients that you need, working with you to create the meal, following the recipe that you are creating, and taste testing as you go along. So with that approach in mind, let's get started. I want to show you the evolution of my own awareness, starting at the beginning of an awakening I had. That awakening started with spiritual practices. So right here, I'd like you to take a look at the definition of spiritual practice and read it to yourself. Pause the video if you need to, but begin to think about what that definition means. Can you start to think of any examples that would fit? Can you think of ones you may have learned in different faith communities growing up? What about others? Ones you may have done outside of the church setting? Here are a handful of spiritual practices I engaged in growing up in the church. It wasn't until I went to college, grad school even, in my Master of Divinity program that I was really exposed to the vastness and variety of what a spiritual practice could be. The definition says it can be anything that induces a spiritual experience, that brings you into a spiritual awareness, or anything that can cultivate your spiritual development. Now, we've talked about the interconnectedness of our being in this video series, so it's safe to say that spiritual practices can even move into ways that you might already be taking care of or want to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, and or mentally. So take a look at these examples. Be sure to check out the link on the next slide to find even more examples and explanations of spiritual practices. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is contemplation and contemplative practice. And you can begin to think about this. What are you interested in? Again, what are you passionate about as you reflect on the wisdom of your own purpose and calling? What is that causing you to want to read or reflect on? Know that your subject of focus can change and can vary at any given time. What I want to show you now is a breakdown of what I've been putting together based on what I know about me so far, what I've been hearing, what I've been listening to, and where I feel I've been called in my now. So take a look. The final thing I'd like to show you in this video is going back to you're getting to know the self. And when we look at this section, we've really got to look at everything. Now again, when you do this, when you look at everything, you are encouraged to take breaks. Because I think you'll be astounded to find out how much depth you have or could grow into, how complex you are as a human being. But again, when you focus here, you're going to be zooming out from that spiritual practice, from that contemplative practice, and really stepping into things like metacognition. So thinking about thinking and incorporating your own ability to alter or evolve your own thoughts and behaviors. So that kind of awareness means you're looking at you from a bird's eye view. So remember that cooking metaphor again. And know that you won't be able to do any or all of this kind of work or practice and remain the same. So in this process, reflections and practices, again you are transforming one moment at a time. How are you focusing your time? In Parkinson's law, Cyril Northcote Parkinson, British historian and author, saw that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Meaning that if you give yourself a week to complete a 2-hour task, then, psychologically speaking, the task will increase in complexity and become more daunting so as to fill that week. It may not even fill the extra time with more work, but just stress and tension about having to get it done. By assigning the right amount of time to a task, we gain back more time and the task will reduce in complexity to its natural state. That explanation of Parkinson's law comes from lifehack.org. Now, these next few slides are meant to help you begin to see what Parkinson's law can look like in your own life as you apply it to your schedule. I've given you some examples of what it looks like in my own life, and I'll tell you, I remember when I was using only 8 to 10 hours in a day and wondering why there weren't more than 24 hours in a day. Once I started incorporating spiritual practices into my schedule, creating and executing morning, evening, weekend, and lunch routines, I realized a whole nother 8 hours that I could be using for my own spiritual, personal, and professional development. It took me a while to introduce multiple practices consistently into my daily schedule, sometimes because of heavier work weeks, sometimes because of personal business, and especially now because of these ever-present times of transition. It even took a while to figure out what I needed to have in my morning, evening, and weekend routines, how I needed to most effectively utilize breaks and lunchtime while I was at work, and sometimes that changed depending on the day. But I'd say after about a year or two from my beginning this challenge, talking to people that could help me figure these things out, I was able to start moving into things like tracking my progress, expanding my list of practices, testing out the things I was able to do because of what I've been practicing, goal setting, even beyond introducing different practices, and then balancing and maintaining the things I felt I needed for just about every area of my life. Well, if you didn't like cooking before, I hope you do now. Or maybe you will sometime soon or later. Because with this, we have moved into a continual space of doing just that. What you've received in these videos has been very helpful tools that you can add to your own tool belt, that can be there for you when you need to be guided to those places that you may have been looking for all the time, or places that may have been right in front of your eyes but you didn't recognize them. So as we go, I want to leave you with one final image. But before that, I want to say thank you to all of you for spending time with me this summer and being so eager to learn about yourselves, being so open to growth and having such a passion for taking care of you and loving you more. So until we meet again, let us now go our separate ways as we all continue on this path to contemplation. Peace be with you, and take care.